I am so excited for today's conversation with Ada Deferrari. She is one of my business friends. I've known her for several years and we instantly connected. And you're going to see why in this episode. She is sharing so much gold about business tips and advice and just her experience over the years. I mean, she talks about some of the hard stuff that she went through. And if you're ever in that moment of like, I'm going through a really challenging time right now in my business, watch this episode. There's some really great advice for you. And we talk about made it moments as we usually do on this episode. It's very fun to hear Ada's made it moment, that first sale. Man, you know, you are hustling and you finally get that first sale. So she's got a great story there. Ada also has a book recommendation for us. And I have never seen such an enthusiastic book recommendation in my life. Like, she is swearing by this thing. I'm going to read it this weekend. You're going to want to tune in and hear about this book. It sounds really cool. It sounds like it's going to save entrepreneurs a lot of time, a lot of money. I can't wait to read it. And we also talk about a plus that came out of COVID for Ada. You know, there was a lot of challenging things through COVID, but we also saw a lot of innovation and new ways of thinking, and that definitely happened for her. So love this episode. Before we dive in, let me just quickly tell you a little bit more about my friend. Ada Deferrari is a world-renowned designer and style educator. For over 16 years, she has been designing women's accessories and empowering women to choose style over fashion, teaching women how to dress, to look and feel confident. Her belt designs are carried in over 1,000 plus stores worldwide, and her style courses have been seen by hundreds of women. She's a mom of 3 girls, a wife, and a world traveler, which she talks about how she is going abroad in a couple of weeks and working 2 months abroad with her family, which sounds incredible. So excited for her and to hear how that goes. So you're going to get a lot of inspiration and a lot of advice on this episode. So let's dive in. Are you ready to open up and talk about all things business? I'm Crystal Vilkaitis, a curious entrepreneur who loves talking about business, especially over a glass of wine. I started Crystal Uncorked to share open and honest conversations about my journey and talk to other entrepreneurs about their experiences. We pull back the curtain and talk about the highs and the lows. Wine isn't required, but is recommended. This is Crystal Uncorked. Ada, welcome to Crystal Uncorked. I'm so excited you're here.
Hello. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for being here. Now I have to know, what are you drinking?
Oh, what am I drinking? Well, I have to say I am now a big fan of New Zealand wines. My parents were in New Zealand, like right before the pandemic. They had to like rush back, but they're like, it's all about the New Zealand wines. And so now I'm drinking a little Sauvignon Blanc. Nothing too expensive, but it's delicious.
Oh my gosh. That's all that matters. The one thing that as I'm getting more into wine, I'm realizing you don't have to have highly priced wine for it to be good. There is so many great wines that are like 20 and under. And I've had that one. I know it's good. And I know that Sauvignon Blanc, that from New Zealand, that's where you want to get it from. One of my favorites is Kim Crawford. I don't know if you've tried Kim Crawford, but you'll have to try that one. Yes. And then I have a Modevra from Evolve Wines. And what's fun about this is that we have our own conference. I don't know if you saw this, but we are doing an in-person conference. Crystal Media is in Denver, Colorado, April of 2023. And it's called Evolve. And I found this wine that's also called Evolve.
Perfect.
I know. And it's grown and made here in Colorado. So it's also local and it's really good. So I love it. Cheers, Ada, to this interview today.
Cheers. Perfect.
I love it. Okay.
You can ask them to be for sponsorship. I love it.
Well, actually, we are going to serve the wine at the event. Like, it's just going to be perfect. And they're going to be on Crystal Uncorked as well. So everybody listening, look for a future episode. Really great wine. And I have to just say too, just on like such a personal note, I had COVID. I'm like recovering from COVID, first time getting it. I was out. I have not had wine in over a few weeks, which is kind of a long time for me. And having a sip of this is like, oh my God, this is so good.
I feel so honored to be here for your first sips post.
Exactly.
So you got to take it easy then. After
exactly, I know
a few weeks, it's like
yeah, exactly. I poured a smaller portion than normal just to be easy here. We won't get too uncorked on this episode. But let's dive in. Tell everybody a little bit about you and how you got into the belt industry.
Yeah, so it's I'm the designer behind the Auto Collection belt line. And it was one of those like magical moments where you're in the right time, the right place. I was going to go on to law school after graduating from UC Santa Barbara, but I wanted to take a year off. I went down to Argentina, and I wanted to study Spanish because I wanted to eventually do international law. So I wanted to perfect my Spanish, and I was taking an international law course. And I was like, yeah, this isn't really doing it for me, but I like the business aspect of it. At the same time, I happened to shop like crazy, shop till you drop in Argentina. Their accessories are beautiful. Their fashion is gorgeous. Their leathers are buttery. And I shopped my entire trip. And also it was very inexpensive. And when I came back to the US, all of my girlfriends and all of my mom's friends, they're like, where did you get all of these beautiful accessories? I want in. And so I told them like, well, next time I go, just let me know what you want and I'll buy for you. And so when I went down there, everyone wanted handbags at the time. And so I went to the store and I was like, well, if I get these at retail price, but I need to get like 10 plus, maybe even 15 plus handbags, that'll be pretty expensive. Let me just ask them if I can go straight to their factory and maybe buy that way. And so long story short, I went straight to the factory. I was like this 21-year-old kid practically. And I went down to the factory, negotiated with them. I got a great price and I went back home and I took my handbags at a great price. I was so happy to get a good deal for everybody. But they're like, well, you might be onto something here. And so I thought, well, maybe let me just, before I distribute all my handbags out, I did a couple of trunk shows. I also took some of those handbags to a local boutique, and that's kind of where it all started. One of the owners took me under his wings, and he kind of taught me a little bit of the trade, and took me to actually a trade show. It's a fashion trade show, and showed me the ropes, and I just started off that way. And just a few years later, the economy kind of just, hit rock bottom. And at that point, people weren't buying handbags, but they did want to buy something. So they started buying belts. And with a belt, you could basically take anything you have in your wardrobe and restyle it. And you can still feel fresh and items could still feel new, but you at least like bought a little something and you didn't spend as much. And so that was kind of how I got into belts. And I still stuck with handbags for a little bit longer, but it was really belts that took off. And right now we're the leading belt company in the US and internationally. So we have over 2,000 plus stores that we design for, and it's under our label. It's all under Auto Collection, and we work with the Nordstroms and Dillard's and Anthropologie, Free People, and of course many unique kind of cute boutiques as well, independent boutiques. So yeah, that's my story of how it started.
I love it. Thank goodness. I mean, from going law school to just all of a sudden, like, how was that? Was there a moment where you woke up one night, like middle of the night, being like, what am I doing? Like, because it's just fell kind of out of the sky into your lap of this idea and just happened. Like, how did that feel?
Well, it was, international law. But when I was going through in my undergrad, I did take legal classes and they were just so boring. But it just felt like, I'm from an immigrant family. And in our family, you're either a lawyer, you're an engineer, you're a doctor. You have some kind of profession that is going to make your parents proud. And so for me, I was like, okay, law, that sounds about right. And I I love studying international anything. And so I thought international law. I didn't know what international business meant until I went down to Argentina and I started one. Because I just didn't know. I was like, what is that? What is international business? And so, yeah, that's kind of how it went. And I'm so glad it did, because I definitely am working in the right field and I love what I do.
Totally. I mean, your belts are stunning. I own several of them. I just am like, I love watching your content on Instagram and your videos on YouTube. Like, we'll link to all of this, but Auda's just got so many great fashion tips, styling tips, like I have learned a ton from you, and we'll link to it, but you guys, you got to check it out, and you got to check out her belts, because I've never seen anything like them. I mean, they're so unique. They're so fashionable, and you can wear them with so many different things.
And that was kind of the point too, when I did obviously my research, and I thought, well, there's a lot of belt lines out there, but they're all utilitarian and they're all about just holding up your pants. Whereas there weren't really any kind of more fashion, feminine lines where you can wear a belt with a romper and your pants, or, a jumpsuit or a dress or a tunic. So we wanted to really bring in that versatility through a belt line. And I hadn't seen anything like that in the market before. So I'm like, oh, let's create it. Because I myself always wore belts, and I actually would tie scarves around my waist. And so I came up with all of these different unique ways to tie a scarf around my waist. But now I loved it so much more with leather, just made it more luxe. And I liked the fact that it was a solid color that you can wear over your outfits. So we have like 12 plus ways to wear one belt. And that one belt, the wrap belt, is kind of the signature piece in our collection.
Love it. I love it so much. Okay, so after all of these years of being in business, what are three, and probably it's hard to pick three, but what are three key lessons that really propelled your business forward, whether it's impact or revenue? What are those three things?
Oh my gosh, three. That is hard to pick, but I will probably very quickly be able to say that you can't do it alone. Like, you definitely have to build a team, because had I just stayed in my parents' garage with 110-degree weather and not being able to leave for 2 weeks straight. I mean, I am like that typical story of working in my parents' hot garage. It was like a sauna in there most of the time, and then traveling all over and selling, and then coming home and doing all the shipments and flying down to Argentina to do all of my manufacturing. I mean, that would have been impossible. So I definitely, very early on, I thought I need an assistant. And that was one of my first hires, is somebody that would help me take some of that paperwork load off of my plate. And from early on, it's like, okay, well, what's next after this? And delegating. And then I would say probably number two is culture is king. After that, of course, building a team, then you have to build that culture, which I think is super important. I often initially would make the mistake of like, oh, it's all about processes, because I am pretty strong at processes. But it was like processes. And if something fails, it's because the process failed. And it wasn't that. It's really because the culture failed. And so I think one is build a team. Number two, understanding that culture is king. And that's where kind of it all comes down to, like, building that culture of people that believe in you, believe in your product, but also want to work hard and believe in the dream and keep going. And we have an amazing team. I love our team. I call us the dream team. And I think that's really important for number two. And number three, let's see. Well, having faith, I would say, probably like key to keep moving forward, because it wasn't, I mean, the first few years are so difficult. And I mean, there were so many times when I wanted to throw in the towel and just give up. And this is now like 15 plus years ago. You know, you lose friends along the way. You miss out on fun parties. You go bankrupt a couple, maybe not bankrupt, but I mean, we've been definitely in a deep debt. And I just, I just had to have faith that it was going to work out. And so I think that's the third point, of course, is the faith. But you have to be logical about it. It's not like, oh, just keep putting, of course, have the faith, but make sure you're measuring and keeping track of the metrics and all of that involved in of course, the faith part.
Yes.
So I think doing your own diligence is important. But yes, definitely keeping the faith because it was hard in the beginning.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, any advice there? Because I feel like let's say that there's a business owner that's listening right now and they're like, oh my gosh, I am struggling. Everything is not working. I am losing money, or I feel like I've been going, and we've had some wins, but I'm really struggling. I want this to work. Any advice? Like, this is so in the moment of like, but like, what would you say to that person?
Oh my gosh. I think like the key is also identifying what the true problem is. I have many girlfriends that have businesses, or I've been around many people that are startups, and I've been a startup I'm still a startup. I'm still small, but 15 years later, the lessons that we learned are really looking at what is the true problem, because so often we think, oh, well, if I only did Facebook ads or if I only did Google ads, all of my problems would go away. But okay, fine, you're driving traffic, but how are you converting that traffic? Do you have, some kind of system where you're shipping or refunds or customer service? Like, there are so many other steps involved. And so really trying to figure out, okay, what is the true problem? Like, what is the obstacle that you need to, come across, get through? Because one of the things what's happening is, everyone feels that sales are their problems. Well, at one point in our business, it wasn't sales. Like, we did have sales coming in, but we had money leaking like crazy. We were inefficient. We had no profits. And that's when we got into a deep debt. And that was just because we had sales coming in, but we didn't have like the foundation, the structure, and like that culture. And so really identifying the problem, I think, is super key. And instead of just starting to throw things at the wall or like going straight for tactical solutions.
Yeah, I love that advice because it also really helps you not feel so out of control. I mean, like, to get really clear on what is the root, right? What is that one thing that is really causing all of this? And taking that time, sometimes you have to take a step back to really analyze and figure that out. And sometimes you need to get help. Like, I talk a lot about having mentors, and if you have somebody that you can reach out to who can help reflect back and ask some of those questions to help you understand that root, I feel like would really be beneficial. But that's such great advice, Autumn, for anybody that's in that place.
And to that, I think that is also super great advice, is to have somebody that will help you, that will really understand you, but also that somebody, it can't necessarily be your mom or your girlfriend. Like, it has to be, somebody that understands a business. Because I was just going to say, because I've made that mistake of, asking my grandma and saying like, well, what do you think? It's like, what does grandma know? And so it's because I just wanted a sounding board, and luckily she would kind of come back and say, well, what do you think? And so it was good, and I guess in a way, but it is true. Like, you do want to have, ask for advice and help, but maybe somebody that also is at your level would understand.
Totally has some experience there. So they are really guiding you down the right path versus family who's just like, I believe in you. I mean, you're going to get totally different answers there.
Exactly.
And different support. I talk a lot about made it moments on the show. I love hearing when, these could be small and these can be giant, right? Like, so I'm sure we all have so many different made it moments, but I'd love to hear one of yours.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. I'm like, let's see what I think. There are so many different stages in my business where I've had those like little tiny, moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I think this is going to be something. And I'm actually going to go back 15 years when I first started, and why I went past that first year that I went past. And it was really hard because I was going from store to store, and I was carrying my little belts around, and I would show my products, and, people were really nice, which I really appreciated. But, it was like, oh, thank you, sweetie, but no, thank you. Oh, maybe next time. And it was the first store that was like my big store. They had 5 locations. And I was getting rejected every single day. And it was like Friday. I remember this as if it was yesterday. It was Friday. And I have to kind of back up for a second too. I mean, I was so broke at this time that my husband and I, we would get a large coffee at Starbucks and then split it. And then we made sure to kind of have it for the rest of the day because we couldn't afford it. And we would get the Subway sandwiches, like those $5 Subway sandwiches, and split it and ask them to pack on the lettuce because, again, we had to make sure it lasted all day. So it was like those kinds of moments. And when this store, I walked in and I just remember like it was yesterday when he's like, oh my gosh, this is a great product. Why don't you go up the street to our other location? I don't remember the lady's name, but it was like, show them to Mary. I'll call her, tell her that you're coming, and she'll go ahead and place the order. And I was like, place the order? Okay. So I went up the road because they had 2 stores, and she did place the order for 5 stores and another reorder. So it was like my first 10 orders, big orders of like, I don't know, it was like 2,000 each. And that was when like, okay, I think I'm onto something. I'm not going to get super excited yet, but I think I'm onto something. And when they got their orders in, they reordered immediately for the entire season. It was like, okay, I think I'm onto something. I think we could do it. And so it's just the first one is the hardest. After that, we got into Nordstrom and some of the other beautiful major retailers, but it was that first boutique where it was like, oh my gosh, I think we're onto something. So, and it was the hardest one to get. And after that, it was like, okay, the faith got fed and we kept going.
Totally. Validation, man. Somebody believes in it. They see it more than like they see what I see. And to have that, it feels so good when that happens. I love it.
Yeah.
What is the kind of going back to advice? What is the best business advice you've been given and by who?
Let's see. Well, I am a big fan of podcasts, first of all. I love watching your show. I love watching the Guy Raz show. And I feel like I'm just picking up, from everybody. I watch at least, if not 1 or 2 podcasts per week. I usually make it Sunday. I clear my head and I just listen in and I kind of get myself inspired for the week. And so I think that's great advice that I've been given to just stay hungry and to keep feeding your mind and your soul. But I would also say great business advice. I know this is a little bit more tactical, but I think it's very practical, is to watch your metrics and watch your scoreboards. I know it's a very just practical piece of advice, but I remember it was our first consultant that we met with, and he's like, if there's no numbers, if you're not looking at numbers every day, you're not watching your business. And so I took it to heart and I started watching my numbers, and we also hired an accountant that was helping us and like an Excel ninja that was helping us with all the scoreboards. And I think that was one of the probably most tactical but practical advices I've ever gotten. So
it's so good. I think that I actually bought the URL Know Your Effing Numbers. I had a weird thought of like, I'm going to create something that's about the importance of knowing your numbers, because I was very lucky that my mentor, who I started working with about a year into my business, that was one of her first things, was like, what's your budget? Where is the income coming in? Where is it going out? How much do you have? And I was like, I don't know, but I'll find out. And I didn't know. I think a lot of business owners skip that part, like, because they want to do the fun stuff, the stuff they're passionate about, and they're anxious to get going and get out there in the world. And all the numbers are like, even if you like numbers, which I do, you can still like put it kind of on the back burner, or it's over there. Like I'll save that for later. Oh, I'll get to that next week because I've got to do all this other stuff. And it's just such a critical part to being successful. Like if you don't know your numbers, recently I kind of fell behind on keeping track, and I'm like, how did I get here? So I just want to like add on to your point of, and stick with it. Like you need to constantly be checking in and on top of your numbers and know your effing numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like working out, right? Or your diet or anything. It's like you just have to stay consistent. Otherwise, things are going to go downhill real quick. And that is unfortunately the truth with your business. And like, I guess I would say if you're somebody that's not into numbers, then find a business partner that is, or hire somebody. But you can't even hire. Like you have to know your numbers. You have to know your numbers.
Yep. They can collect information and like give you streamlined ways to analyze and look at stuff and offer advice, but you still need to be looking. You need to be asking questions. Like it's so critical. Such good advice. Now, shifting gears a little bit, how do you, because I mean, being an entrepreneur can be a lot of work, where I don't know if you feel this way, but I've been researching burnout a lot. Like I've been very curious about burnout, and there's a lot of different ways that it can affect us and different ways that we handle it and why we get burned out. And one thing it talked about is that you're always on. And as entrepreneurs and business owners, I feel always on because I'm always thinking about the business. There's a idea. Did that email go out? What am I going to say at this webinar? I got to pack for this trip. What about this partner? Are we growing fast enough? What are we doing 3 years from now? It's like everything, right? You're always on. So what do you do to recharge your batteries, to have that break and really fill yourself back up?
Well, you don't know this, but I'm taking off in 2 weeks and I'm going to be working abroad for 2 months.
Oh my gosh.
So I think everyone is different, but for me, quite honestly, and I would probably say for me and for most people I know at least, but again, I can't generalize, is changing environments, I think is super important, and seeing things from a different, fresh perspective. And for me, it's honestly like, people, praise staycations. I think that in order to really rest, you do need to change environments. And again, I am a total fan of traveling. I've been traveling since I was little, and I've been exposed to traveling and to trips. And so now we're not necessarily going on a vacation, because it is true, I am an entrepreneur and I do have to be on. But I think even changing environments, and I love where we live, I love our house, but just sitting at a cafe or just changing environments really changes like your perspective. And I mean, I don't know, but I was seeing the Bill Gates documentary, how he goes away to his little cabin and he studies and he focuses there. And so I think just to recharge your batteries, because I love studying so much and I love learning about businesses, I will continue to do that on my trip, but I just need to change environments. So that to me, I think is key. And of course, working out every day. I mean, I just think it's super important to work out. I think it's like a necessity. So that's how I do it, is change environments, and I do work out every day. I'm like you. I'm always thinking about business. It's really hard for me to stop.
Yeah, it is. And, there's this element of like, especially if you enjoy what you're doing and like, then it's great, right? It's exciting. And there's a lot of gratitude around that, being able to do that. But there is this side that I don't think people understand until you're in it, that you are always on, and it can be draining. Like you don't get to clock out Friday, we're going into holiday weekend as we're recording this. Like it's very different when you are an entrepreneur. But that's why you have to have things in place that do fill you back up. Otherwise, burnout happens, right? And I'll definitely talk more about burnout on the show because I think it's a really important conversation.
Yeah. The other thing too, Crystal, I don't know if you've experienced this in your business, but one of the things that I feel helps me is working on what I truly enjoy in my business. So there are components of my business that I don't enjoy. I don't know, data entry or, there's obviously components that I don't enjoy, and those tire me a lot faster than when I'm working in my zone of genius. Like usually when I'm working in something that I love, like even, talking to you, talking about business, it re-energizes me. And so that also helps. So just working in my zone of genius and doing what I love and working on the parts of my business that I really love, it helps kind of I wouldn't say necessarily prevent burnout, but it's not that I don't need to rest, but it really helps. It does re-energize me.
I completely agree with you. I'm so glad that you brought that up. Even just a couple of days, or maybe it was yesterday, I was talking to Pauline about Crystal Uncorked, and I'm very open and honest on the show. I'm feeling like I'm kind of dropping the ball. Like I'm not doing as much as I could to promote the show, showing up on social and getting more bite-sized clips. And just like really the big part is posting to social media, which is very hilarious because I have a social media company and this is what I teach our retailers. But I so feel this like pain almost and frustration of I'm not doing enough because especially with social, there's like a million, you could always be doing more. And I said to Pauline, it's just not what I love doing. I want to show up and talk to people. That is what I love doing with this show. I want somebody else to then take it and run, right? And go and promote it. And obviously I can find that person. And I think that's kind of where I'm at right now is, but the thing is like, I'm also feeling like this show doesn't drive revenue today. So you kind of got to hustle. You got to do what you got to do until you get to a place to hire. So, but it does create that burnout faster. And it makes it harder to have more energy for the things that you do really love. So I love that you brought that up. I so am like, yes, I agree. I'm right there with you. And it's great for our audience to hear that too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what books or podcasts, because you mentioned podcasts, have you been reading or listening to recently that you would recommend?
Well, I did mention the Guy Raz, like how I built this. And also he has another podcast that I believe is Wisdom from Above. I can't speak high enough to Guy Raz and his podcast. But there's also a book that I've been reading that I'm like, oh my gosh, every single entrepreneur needs to read this book. And I'm going to say, as far as I think it honestly is the number one book, business books.
Wait, can I guess?
Number one.
Can I guess before you say it?
Yeah, I want you to guess because this is like number one. Like I would like fight for this one.
Yes. Because I recently listened to a book that I feel the exact same way about. So,
my gosh.
I know. So my guess is $100 Million Offer.
Ooh, no.
Oh, it's not. Okay. What is yours?
The Road Less Stupid.
Ooh, I've never heard of it.
So I do have a mastermind that I'm in, and I love our mastermind. I call them the board of directors because in the very beginning of the show, you said it's really, it's important to have a mentor and a group of colleagues. And I just love our group. And they recently told us, or two of the guys in the meeting mentioned this book. And they're like, oh no, you have to read this book. You have to. I mean, they were like shaking. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, all right, I'll buy the book. And I was like, and then I have another mastermind that I was like, oh my gosh, ladies. It is like so good. It is so good. It's not one of those like inspirational books that I also love, but this is like, you guys, this is step 1. This is step 2. This is step 3. This is step 4 to success. And it is like very black and white. and this is what you should be doing. And if you're not doing this, you're paying what he calls a dumb tax.
Ooh.
And it's like so good. I want you to read it, and then I want you to see what you say.
Oh, I will get it this weekend. I will read it. I like you. This is such a raving review. I cannot wait to read this book. And good. How exciting.
I mean, this is a book that I will, with our mastermind, we were saying this. As soon as we finish the book, we're turning it around and starting again. And I have it in like a printed version, and I have it in Audible, and I'm doing both. And that's everyone so far, like all the players that recommended this book, they're on their third, fourth time reading it. That's how important this book is.
Okay. That's amazing. Yeah. Road Less Stupid. We will link to this, and everybody read it. Let's talk about it. Share in the comments. Let's have a conversation about it. I love when we get recommendations for new stuff. So I can't wait to read it. Yeah.
Definitely. And I love reading business books, but I was so excited about this one, and I couldn't wait to share it with you.
I love it. I love it. Autumn, before we sign off, you mentioned in our email, kind of in the form as you come on the show, about something that kind of happened for you with COVID. And I wanted you to just kind of share that, because you had such an amazing takeaway through that. Like with the shutdown, obviously so many terrible things happened. And then also great things and innovation and looking at the world differently. All of that happened as well. And you kind of had one of those situations for your business. Will you share?
Yeah. I mean, one of my mentors would always say, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And when he said that, I was like, well, what does that mean? It happens for you. Oh, okay. So it's happening for me. This is a favor. I don't know how COVID is a favor, but let's see. And so I work with, as I mentioned to you, we have over 2,000 stores that we work with. We're B2B primarily. And the world was shut down. I mean, all the stores were closed. All of the future orders that we needed to ship were now not going to ship, most likely. They were probably going to be canceled. And there's just so much debt that was incurred. And it was really scary. But kind of almost immediately we went into like go mode, like what can we do? And so I started a styling course at the time of like, okay, well, women are at home. Let's teach them about style. Let's teach them how to detox their closet, what to wear, what not to wear. So as we were doing that, and as we were learning a little bit more about online marketing and how to speak to our audience and who exactly is our audience, we just almost kind of like started from scratch, and we discovered her. We discovered our lady on the other side of, the internet. And before, again, we didn't know, because we're working with so many stores. And so we didn't know exactly who she was. I mean, we know who the Nordstrom girl is, and we know who the Dillard's girl is, but who's our girl? And we found her, and her name's Sarah, and we named her, and we created a mood board around her, and we started talking to her, and now she's coming and she's shopping with us. And we really kind of shifted the way that we started doing business. And now we do have a bigger business to consumer. So it's like human to human. I like to say human to human. And I love it, because now we're able to talk to her, and we're able to see how she feels and what problems we can solve. And so that was a really big shift for us, is being able to now work online and directly with customers. So
I mean, that's going to make your marketing so much more efficient, because it's really clear who you're trying to speak to and who needs to know about you. And that really resonates when they see that content on social media and out there. Like, that's gold. That kind of information is gold for a business.
Yeah. I mean, they always say, riches are in the niches. But again, I'm a B2B, so I didn't understand what that meant. I mean, I understand it from like a logical perspective. And so many business mentors and so many books you read, and you're like, okay, I get it. But I didn't really know how to communicate with her. And it wasn't until COVID, when all of, everyone was shut down, everyone was in front of their computer, that I was finally able to find her. So that was a big turning point in our business, and I'm super appreciative of it. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. And Ada, how can people find out more information about you and your business?
Yeah, so we're, of course, on social media, at Ada Collection. And I also have my own, I'm like you, Crystal, I'm trying to get a little bit better about posting and being a little bit more active on social media. But you can find me at Ada Deferrari on Instagram. And we do have a YouTube channel, Ada Deferrari, as well. Or you can shop for belts at adacollection.com.
Yes, check out her belts. Seriously, they are stunning. They are so versatile. Like, I love Ada's belts, and I love you, Ada. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. And you had mentioned, like, what is like the key trend this summer? Well, It's actually belts. Like, yay! Belts aren't always on trend, but they are this summer. So go on and pick up a little cute belt for yourself.
I love it. And you'll be on trend for summer. Yeah, I said that before we were hitting record. Ada's like, anything specific you want to know? And I'm like, selfishly, I want to know, what do we need to be wearing for summer? And I almost forgot to ask. It's belts. I love it. How perfect. That's so perfect. Well, Ada, one more cheer. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you so much for having me.
We will, of course, as always, link to everything that we talked about today. Be sure to check out more and connect with Ada online. And I just want to thank everybody for listening today. Ada, for your time. And we will see you on the next CU. Bye, everybody.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much, Crystal. And I love what you're doing. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I love it. All right, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, real quick, if you are a small business owner, I would love to see you at Evolve 2023. This is our marketing and business conference put on by Crystal Media. It's happening in Denver, Colorado, April 26th and 27th at the Gaylord Rockies, a gorgeous venue. And we are going to just create a very special, amazing, epic business event for our small businesses. If you want to evolve your marketing, evolve your business, and evolve your life, this is a must-attend event. Go to crystalmediaco.com/evolve. That's crystalmediaco.com/evolve to learn more and to grab your ticket. I hope to see you there. All right, let's keep this conversation going. Join me on Instagram. I'm at Crystal Uncorked. And I need to tell you, thank you so much for listening to this show. It truly means the world to me. If you're enjoying Crystal Uncorked, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Okay, I'll see you on the next CU. Cheers, friend.